Hello and welcome back to The Road to Doomsday, the MCU rewatch show brought to you by the Nerd Academy podcast, Accept No Substitute. I am your host, Jared Bachman Stubbs, and Taylor is sitting this one out. If you want to hear Taylor's thoughts on Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, be sure to go check out our Patreon and listen to our audio commentary track that Taylor was on for, but she was not feeling well, a little sleepy, felt like crap, so I was like, you know what? I have the one and only Bill Sheehy, executive producer of Truth in the Barrel, joining me for this one. So I was like, you know what? Sit this one out. I'm going to party it up with Bill and the Golden Daggers.
Here's the thing. Taylor is here with us. If you can see on my Taylor Swift Eras shirt. So she is here with us in the room. So
yes,
happy to be here. I do have to say, because it has been stuck in my head ever since the latest weekend update this past weekend with Jeremy's improv or impression of Tucker Carlson. We're doing Road to Doomsday. Those are the rules. That's the goal now.
I am behind. I'm criminally behind on SNL. I have, however, seen a lot of the clips of the Tucker impression, and I have to say,
it's so good.
Tucker Carlson, like, I think what makes so many of like the right-wing weirdos that I have hyperfixated on fascinating is that they have such a way of speaking. Mm-hmm. Like, obviously, like anybody who's listened to Nerd Academy for long enough knows that it takes very little for me to switch into the fucking Alex Jones voice. I've said before, if you take me and you take Jerry from Bomb Badcast and you put our Alex Jones impressions together, you get the perfect one. Because Jerry does the voice better than I do. he gets the texture. Listen, folks,
I think you probably get the spirit of it more. Like
I do the phrasing better. I do, like, I speak in the tempo a little more accurately, and I do the verbiage better. But Jerry's voice is just so much better than mine. And Tucker Carlson is somebody who is so hard to do an impression of because there's almost a sense of wonder to Tucker's affect that I can't quite put my finger on. But there's just like the only way I can describe it is as though there is a sense of wonder to it, where like he's almost blown away by what he's saying in real time. Like the iconic or infamous, I should say, like welcome and M's are back. like there's something to the way he's
me. So like there is something to that because like
it's almost hypnotic.
When he interviewed Ted Cruz and he was talking about the amount of people in Iran, it's like what he like did like his stupid laugh, like you went above the country, you don't even know how many people are in it.
The laugh is fucking terrifying.
Yeah,
like he cosplays so well as like a serious person.
I'm telling
you, laughs like Nazi Scooby Doo, and it's the scariest thing you've ever heard.
Raggy.
Benjamin
Rednaru, Raggy. I'm sorry.
This is what the show's allowed to turn into when Taylor isn't here. Because she and I both keep each other on the rails. Like, people listen to normal Nerd Academy notice that Road to Doomsday is a little bit more buttoned up with me because I know I have to stay on target, and Taylor could go off like just the most like non sequitur, like fucking betrayal of consciousness tangent.
I will.
We do such a good job of keeping each other on.
I will let you know. I do want to move on to Shang-Chi, but I will be working on my Scooby Doo impression of saying jet fuel can't melt steel beams. It's not ready for prime time. It's coming. I'm going to work on it, and I'll let you guys know when it's ready.
I can't wait for it. Well, before we jump into the meat and potatoes of the episode, folks, are you the son of an nearly immortal warlord who has lost his wife and now kind of lost his mind, and you just want to drown your sorrows while you're working as a valet in San Fran? Well, let me introduce you to Sunday's Bloody Mary, the only Bloody Mary mix better than a from-scratch Bloody Mary. You guys know the drill. Sundays has the most badass Bloody Mary accoutrement in the multiverse with their 3-time award-winning spicy mix, as well as their mild and traditional mixes if the spice isn't for you. This former bartender trusts only one mix, and that is Sundays. The only mix better than a from-scratch Bloody. If you want to shake up your Bloody Mary game for the rest of your days, use the link in the description down below and use the code TNAP, TNAP at checkout to get 10% off your order. and help out your favorite nerds while you do it. Bill,
Mhm.
you ready for some trivia?
Despite what my record in epic confrontations implies, yes, I am ready for some trivia.
Hopefully, this episode is out before the match, or the match is
Yeah.
out before the
Yeah.
episode.
You could just actually, here's what I want you to do. I want you to just like censor it and then like make it sound like I said something insane. And like you can't we can't in good conscience say what Bill we have to censor what Bill said.
All right. For your first question, and now I will explain because I didn't know quite
Mhm.
how to word this. Unlike Eli, I will make clear my questions.
Mhm.
Um, what two types of fighters that are seen facing off inside of the Golden Daggers previously depicted in previous MCU films? So I am not referring to Abomination and Wong.
Okay.
It is when they're coming through the hallway. There's a fight going on behind like the plexiglass
Mhm.
between two types of people we have seen in the MCU
Are we
before.
talking like a sorcerer from Kamatage or
No, like that
okay.
nothing to do with Wong and Abomination.
Okay. Okay.
In one of the little
Uh
side fights,
I
it is like two types of
are they is one of them
fighters.
alien or
They're both human.
okay. Shit. I'm going to say one is a extremis person and the other is can I get a hint on the second one?
You got the hardest one already. One of
Okay.
them is an extremist
That's
soldier.
okay.
And
What
the other one has recently appeared in Phase 4. It may or may not have been the subject of the last episode of The Road to Doomsday, if you remember your release
is it a Black
schedule.
Widow?
It is a Black Widow and an
Okay.
extremist soldier.
Yes. Got it. Perfect. This is fun. I like when I actually know things.
That was a good pull. Like I said, you got to. I thought I was going to have to give you a hint on the extremist soldier. I was
Well,
surprised.
I thought of like the Mandarin Iron Man 3 and I was like, what's that movie had Extremis in it.
Lots
So,
of connectivity to Iron Man 3 here.
Yeah.
What songs do Shang-Chi and Katie sing at karaoke at the beginning of the film?
It's a whole new world. Or is it
There's three. So, A Whole New World.
okay. Old Town Road.
That's two.
Hotel California is too easy. Hold on. Because it started A Whole New World, then there was one in the middle, then Old Town Road. Gangnam Style.
I don't remember if they do Gangnam Style. I Don't Want to Miss a Thing by Aerosmith.
That's
on
right,
here,
they
but
did. Or maybe they.
if they
Okay.
do Gangnam Style,
Yeah,
you
can I
get the
tell you
question right 'cause I missed
what
one.
that pull is coming from? It's because it's the story of when Katie and Sean meet
Yeah.
meet, where it's like they called him Gangnam Style, and he's
Yeah.
like, "I'm Korean, I'm not Korean, you idiot." So yeah, that's no, you're right. It was I don't want to miss a thing, but I got 2 out of 3, so that's pretty good.
You got 2 out of 3 of the songs. And they do sing Hotel California at the end with
Mhm.
Wong. So, and then your last question. In the 80s, when Stan Lee was considering a Shang-Chi movie or TV series, who did he allegedly strongly consider for the titular role?
Oh well, there's 2. It's Jackie Chan or Bruce Lee.
You are very close. It is Brandon Lee.
Damn it. Okay. Ugh. That's his son, right?
Yep, that was his
Okay.
kid. Because Shang-Chi was largely inspired by Bruce Lee.
That makes
So
sense.
that was he was like, your daddy made me write this character, so you should play him.
That would have been cool. That's a really good piece of trivia.
And for a little bit of background here, as the MCU moved into a new era with many of its heroes gone in the wake of Endgame, new heroes are ready to step into the spotlight, and Marvel was ready to dig deep into its pantheon of lesser-known characters, starting with Shang-Chi. At the time, Disney and Marvel were putting a high premium on having minority stories told by the artists of that background, especially needed in this instance to clean up the problematic legacy of many of Marvel's Asian characters. Marvel enlisted Destin Daniel Cretton, whose name I say in the wrong fucking order every time I say his name. I don't know why my brain will not let me say this man's name correctly, even though I think he's a remarkable director. But Marvel enlisted Destin Daniel Cretton to direct with a large Asian American production crew, including David Callahan, to write, whom himself had a long list of action films to his name, including a number of Marvel and DC movies. The titular role will be taken up by Simu Liu, a largely unknown actor, most notably being featured in the Canadian sitcom Kim's Convenience.
Great show.
Shang-Chi made good on legacy setup throughout the MCU, in particular Iron Man 3, exploring the true Mandarin and how he reacted to the imposter, Trevor Slattery. Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings made it about a third of the way through production before the COVID-19 pandemic halted, and they were able to resume in October of 2020 with a limited crew. Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings had a budget of approximately 200 million, maybe closer to 150, and made approximately 432 million at the box office despite COVID pandemic restrictions. So, pretty good box office here. Again, something we've been talking about a lot. I mostly bring up the box office in the background segment to kind of go over just kind of the cultural ubiquity and watching these movies kind of grow. Again, this is another instance where I don't quite know what to make of the box office for Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, because it's kind of a multifaceted thing. On one hand, it is a newer, very unknown character. I think you have to kind of take that into consideration. You know, the Ant-Man movies do not make as much money as the Iron Man movies, and there's a reason for that. There's also the COVID element here. So lots of things to take into consideration for that overall number, but still, all things considered, 432 million is really good, especially for the pandemic.
Mm-hmm. Well, and
But
they brought him back to do Spider-Man and Wonder Man. So like that,
yeah,
like they felt that obviously they thought they did something right, that he did something right. So box office is for the big wigs, it's probably everything, but like the fact that like he was great to work with, it did really, really well. And
yeah,
like everything else that's come from the movie, I think is probably a good sign.
absolutely, absolutely. But Bill, let me ask you,
Mhm.
what was going on in the life of Bill Sheehy when Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings came out?
Oh
When did you
God.
see it? How were you feeling going into it? How were you feeling
God,
coming
that's
out
a
of it?
so I remember seeing it in when it came into theaters. That COVID's a blur, man. But like,
Oh yeah,
but I remember sitting there in the theater and like kind of getting the same feeling, not quite as like Endgame or Infinity Wars, but like Black Panther. Well, what are a couple of the other? What I loved. Civil War. It felt like and I rewatched it today, but what I remember sitting in the theater thinking this is an automatic like top 5 MCU movie for me. Like it did everything that I wanted it to do. The action was perfect. I think the family story is really, really strong. There's a heart to it that I really, really enjoyed, and I just like it. It's I was thinking about this when I was watching it today, and I think one of my reactions when I came out of the theater was, God, we got to keep seeing more of Simu Liu, or we got to keep seeing more of Shang-Chi, because like this was, it's a top 5 MCU movie for me, and it was pretty much basically right out of the theater too, because like it is such all of my sensibilities. It was kind of perfect for. So I remember walking
right.
out and just really, really liking it.
Absolutely. I mean, I joked with Taylor on the last one because from Black Widow and on, these are all Marvel movies we've seen together.
Mhm,
Um, so the "Where were you when this came out" is kind
mhm,
of redundant unless we have a guest. But I remember seeing this one. This is the second one we saw together. First one we saw when we were actually a thing, because Black Widow was our second date. But I remember being really impressed
mhm.
by this film, and be just absolutely being enthralled by the stunt coordination and by the fight choreography. It is not a secret that I don't want to say like picky or a stickler about that kind of thing because I'm not either of those things. But it's something that I pay a lot of attention to. And the MCU up to this point, like the nature of the characters that drive the action doesn't really lend itself towards like fight choreography. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's not a lot of hand to hand or weapon to weapon. It's a lot of, how do you create interesting matchups between these power sets. And, knowing that we no longer had like Steve Rogers, it kind of in the quiver for a lot of those. Like, I think some of the best hand to hand combat we see is with Steve and it's with T'Challa across all of the things that they appear in. But even then, so much of it is in these big group engagements, and it's not a lot of one on one, hand to hand stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So seeing the MCU have a moment to go full tilt boogie on, like I said, people just throwing hands, just straight fisticuffs, just incredible martial arts acumen on display. I was super blown away by that. I think that the Black Panther comparison is valid. I think that there's also something to be said for like a Thor-ness to this, that there's
Yeah.
this is another instance where we're getting the MCU going, being very bold to go. It's not just like heroes in New York.
Mm-hmm.
This is a
Well,
gigantic
and
cosmology, and there's a mystical nature to Shang-Chi that I think it shares with the stories in Asgard and the stories in
I
Wakanda.
remember when it came out too, and I remember walking out and kind of thinking like, man, they took a second like not a very well known comic book character and made this like
Yeah,
if they you have to remember like we're at this point 2 years out or 2 years after Endgame, so like there was very much a like, okay, well, what comes next? And I remember walking out thinking like, well, if they're doing this with Shang-Chi, like it's only gonna get like can they really like do no wrong? And like I know there's always the debate of like, oh, Marvel fell off since Endgame, but like I think in the moment when this came out, I was like, how they keep doing it. Like they keep
yeah.
making great movies that people really, really like that are really, really cool. So like, yeah, that's what I
I
remember.
think.
I remember walking out and thinking that too.
Well, I mean that's something we talked about a lot. Like I try to avoid bringing it up just because I say it so much. But like you haven't been on Road to Doomsday before, so it's worth reiterating here that I think there's a self-fulfilling prophecy element to it. You have heard me say countless times that I think the MCU fandom did to itself in one year what Star Wars fans took a decade to do,
Yeah,
which
that's a good
was
point.
build up this just absolutely horseshit mythology about how perfect and smooth and no road bumps and no false starts the last era was.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 really punch of everything from WandaVision up to Shang-Chi is really strong.
Mm-hmm.
Like the weakest of that bunch, in my opinion, is Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And even that has some really high
Can I
highs.
say something? That's like my favorite Marvel TV show. Like,
I am on the record as saying that I think that it's towards the bottom of the list for me. And it's like, and I know I'm in
I
the fucking
no,
minority on that,
that's
but
your like that's for yeah. That's another conversation that we could have later.
yeah,
But like it's uh, and I know the whole conversation of if Marvel fell off. Like I looked at the list of like since Endgame, and like with the exception of like one or two movies and maybe like one TV show, like everything has been good to great. Like
yeah. Yeah, I
for
don't I
me at
don't I
least.
don't think there's been a fall off. And in fact, I
Mm,
think, you know, the MCU started doing what I think was what people really wanted, which was to get really brave to do what works so well with the Guardians, which was dig into the back catalog, bring characters to the forefront, who and turn them into household names. Characters who were kind of a big swing. Let's make kids dress up as Ant-Man. Let's make kids
mhm,
dress up as Doctor Strange. Big deal characters in the comics, but characters that did not really permeate out into popular culture, like your Spider-Mans and Wolverines and Hulk, etc. And I really enjoy the fact that Shang-Chi's kind of in that line. It's in the
Mhm.
line of Thor and Black Panther, where it is, look at this just absolutely fantastical, incredible world, and I say that, like, not even just with Talo, like, not just the Talo element of it being like the mystical world, but just like, here is a side to the MCU we really haven't gotten to
Mhm.
see, and it's this mix of like the mysticism of Talo, um mixed with the criminal underworld element, which, like, in
You
a
know,
franchise of superhero movies, we really haven't seen that much of like the criminal underbelly,
mhm. You know,
until recently in this
as
at this stage with Madripoor and now the Ten
when I
Rings.
was rewatching it today, the thing that the first thing that popped into my head was, man, if this was not in the MCU, if this was not an MCU movie, this would just be a great movie. Like
Yeah,
it doesn't need like it's great that it's connected to it, but the heart of the story, like the emotional tissue to it, is so strong that like for me, it's a plus that's it's in the MCU. But like
yeah.
it stood out to me from the like rewatching today. Like, God, this is so well done. Like everything works. I it, that's what really stood out to me rewatching it today.
I mean, it does what the MCU kind of made its bread and butter, which is, it's part of why I resent the blanket definition of superhero movie as like a blanket genre.
Hmm.
Because I don't think, I think that does most of these movies a disservice. When you look at the lion's share of the MCU, most of these movies are X genre, but with
Yep.
superheroes. It is, you look at the Captain America movies and it's a mix of war films and political thrillers, but with superheroes. I think the odd man out, quite frankly, might be Civil War, which even that has a lot of political thriller and a lot of political intrigue to it,
Hmm.
but it gets so big and fantastical it turns into superhero. Um, Black Widow, it's an espionage thriller. Thor has this, just it's a fantasy movie. Guardians of the Galaxy, it's a space opera. It's all of these things. So I think when we say superhero movie, I think our minds go to things like, Superman the movie, or Batman '89, or the original Spider-Man trilogy with Tobey Maguire, where these movies, like even Spider-Man in the MCU, they're teen comedies.
Hmm.
They're teen coming of age stories that just so happen to star Peter Parker.
Right.
And that's one of the strongest things I think the MCU does to kind of separate itself from its competition and like the superhero movie pantheon. And Shang-Chi does that too, where it's like, okay, let's do kind of a modernized version of like a kung fu revenge movie, but it's in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and there's a layer of like sci-fi fantasy, kind of mixed in with it, and you have that interconnective tissue. Um, and it does the thing well. If there is a Marvel formula, it is taking a genre and just injecting superhero sensibilities into it while still letting it be that thing. Like, I don't consider the first two Ant-Man movies to be superhero movies. I consider them to be heist movies
Hmm.
that happen to star a shrinking guy.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that's really brilliant. And I also think that Shang-Chi and a lot of Phase 4 benefits greatly from how much table setting the MCU has done simply by virtue of existing and being as big as it is.
Hmm.
We're able to do things in this movie that are either not necessarily exclusively payoff, but it's just a fun element of like the lived in quality of the MCU. Just little things throughout the set dressing. We talked about the Black Widow fighting the extremis soldier in the Golden Daggers. There's also things like whenever Shang-Chi, it's either when he's going to visit Katie's family to pick her up or he's on his way to his apartment, there's like a poster up for like post blip
Hmm.
counseling.
Hmm.
Things like that. There are people throughout the movie talking about like anything could fucking happen anymore. Like, and just that sense of this is a strange world. This is a strange world to live in, and we're all just kind of going with it. that I think adds to kind of the wonder that this universe still maintains, even though so much of it is well explored. And then you have stuff like bringing Ben Kingsley back, paying
Mm-hmm.
off All Hail the King. You know, this idea that like the Ten Rings have been kind of floating all throughout. I think the Ten Rings is the best example. All the way back in Iron Man 1, you know, we have a part of the Ten Rings be hired by Obadiah Stane to kidnap Tony Stark. And throughout the MCU, we see randos with the Ten Rings. Like there's a Ten Rings affiliate at the weapons deal
Mm-hmm.
in Ant-Man. You know, it's one of the people who get punched out when Darren Cross is trying to sell off the Yellow Jacket suit. You know, like there's
And
all these like little interconnected things. And it's like, okay, here's the Ten Rings, and here's the
mhm.
real fucking man.
And then it's interesting you say that because when Wu was like going through it because his wife died, it makes sense why it feels a little disconnected. Like, why was it disconnected? Why does it feel like it's just showing up willy-nilly? It's because the leader, Wen Wu, was just like going through it and was
Yeah,
dealing with the grief.
and there's that, and there's also like to make a Star Wars comparison. Partly because this character's on the mind because of the show coming out soon, but there's almost like a Darth Maul with Crimson
Mm,
Dawn
yeah,
feel to
yeah.
it, where like because he has to be in the background, because if Maul is at center stage, like it's going to bring way too many eyes and way too much heat. Like the idea that like similar to Crimson Dawn, the Ten Rings, there's a lot of like right hand doing things that the left hand doesn't know about. That Wen Wu is probably ordering and Wen Wu's probably green lighting, but like there's a lot of shit happening in different directions that not everybody involved is privy to. I think it adds to the magnitude that Wenwu brings. I think it's a good segue to talk about Wenwu. Um, I I think Wenwu's really compelling, just like a case study that he's so fun to watch, and Tony Leung's performance is captivating. Um, but like I legitimately, because we all kind of collectively talk about Wen Wu being one of the best MCU villains, kind of being on that, if not on the Rushmore, at least at the very least in the top 10.
Mhm,
Um, that I forgot how little we really get from him and
mhm,
how much Tony Leung's performance just takes a little bit and just spreads the love with
mhm,
so much pathos and tragedy to this character, that I think is the perfect foil to have for a story about reaching one's potential and understanding like how to grapple with being the product of a lot of different existential outside forces.
mhm,
Um, I then there's so many great choices made with how he's presented. There's very much the school of less is more. With you think of the shark from Jaws with the gambling hall scene. I just the way Wen Wu is just marching in with little Shang-Chi there to mark the guy and go, that's him. Or that's one of them. When Wu goes in, crashes out, and beats the shit out of everybody with the 10 rings, like the way he pulls up, and it is how casual he is. He is not like, there's no bluster to him. He's not screaming. He's not yelling. There's no like righteous fury to him. He is so centered and he is so calm, even though you know how much turmoil is inside of him. On some level, this is business. It is deeply personal, but he's treating it like business. And it's the way that like he goes in, pieces up everybody in there, and it's that guy who gets thrown into the glass wall that he like executes right in front of
mhm.
Shang-Chi. It's how casual he is about it. Again, there's no bluster, there's no gusto. It's just he has his foot on the guy's shoulder. He's like, where is he? I don't know. Okay. Shroom. Headshot. Like, it's vicious. And then
Mhm,
again, but like it is how cold he is about it whenever he's bringing these killers to justice. There's a coolness and a sereneness to him, but it's when he's starting to be manipulated by the dweller in darkness that he thinks he has a way to get his wife back to him. is when he kind of starts to lose that cool. And
Mm-hmm.
it's the way he speaks with Shang-Chi and Xiling that like that he is like that he's kind of getting animated and he's being forceful and he's being like, like Shang-Chi's like, you're out of your mind. Like this is insane and you know it. And he throws him to the ground. Like there's a level of fury and almost almost sacrosanct nature to this quest he's on, where he kind of loses that cool, he loses that mystique, and I think it just makes him more compelling. That
Mm-hmm.
it's the acts of hatred and vengeance don't elicit him to lose his cool. It's maybe I can get it back.
Mm.
Is where he kind of starts to lose that cool as a cucumber presentation. I think that just does wonders, and I think it speaks volumes to Tony Leung's performance.
Mm. I agree, and you're talking about how he is cool, calm, and collected with when he's seeking revenge versus when he's being the ghost of his wife or whatever is the dweller in darkness, as you called him. That's interesting to me because it just feels like the one thing that he's been wrong about his entire life was like to him was not putting on the rings, was to
Yeah,
like he had happiness for a little bit at the cost of not having his rings, but still not having his rings is the reason he blames himself for not for the reason that his wife was killed. So that's really really interesting to me to think about that. um that's another thing that when I think about this movie, we talked a little bit about the Rushmore of the villains in the MCU. I think he's on it, and how much, like you said, how many minutes did he have in the movie total? Like he did a lot with a little, like you said. Um,
how much
and
of it is he not even speaking in?
yeah,
Like how
it,
much of it is just table setting of like the
oh, and there
here's
was
here's all of his exploits in the past, and and it's one man crippling entire
when he's
armies.
on in Tallow about to go open the door, and that there's what's the general guy who's like the with the bows well, also there's a
I
great
didn't
quote
catch
in
his
this.
name. Yeah.
But he like was basically saying like the guy in Tallow was saying, you need to get out of here, we wouldn't have wanted you, and he's like, young man, I have lived
Oh,
it was so good. Like it's just the way he's able to convey so much
just
history in a
so
single
charmed.
young man to a guy who's at least 75. Come on.
Mhm. Watch your tone, young man.
Watch your
I've
tone,
lived
young
a
man.
thousand lifetimes, and
Uh-huh.
like, oh,
Uh-huh.
it's stuff like that. Like, I think when Wu, I think I kept saying during the audio commentary we were doing, um, that like I want Destin Daniel Cretton to do Star Wars so badly because I think he like he the way, and it's not just because the fights are thrilling and I want to see like the same stunt team do shit with lightsabers. Like even Taylor was pointing out, she was like just the way Shang-Chi's using that bow staff. She's like, I can just see that, but it's a double
Mm-hmm.
bladed lightsaber.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and like the way he uses the rings, I could see like just like video game level force powers. But even beyond that, just like he has such a great touch for making characters feel incredibly human while feeling larger than life and mythic.
Mm-hmm.
That it is such a hard balance to strike, and I think it's something that is important to Star Wars storytelling. Um, that it is human while being myth all at the same time. And it's such a hard balance to strike. And there's very few filmmakers, I think, who like fully capture that 50-50 split.
Mm-hmm.
And when Wu, I think he's a model Star Wars villain. Like I think there's absolutely that, you have this guy whose entire life is defined by power. His entire life is defined by, if I don't have this power, I am nothing. And then he finds a love that allows him to put it down for a time. Um, but the nature of that love is still as much as he loves her, as much as he loves Xialing and Shang-Chi's mother, there is still a level of possessiveness to it that you can see is what makes him kind of go off his fucking rocker after she dies. And, the way that he's shifting blame, like again, it's not to say that like, oh, it's Wen Wu's fault she was killed. because those guys pull up to Wenwu's fortress. They made decisions of their own,
Hmm.
but these are enemies he made while he was the Mandarin, while he was like like King Khan or whatever he said, like one of his many monikers was. Like these are people who have had beef with him because of shit he did. And when they pull up because they have the same level of anger and piss and vinegar and vengeance in their hearts that he put there, they enact that violence unto him. And when he goes back for retribution, and we flash all the way forward to when he's facing off with his son in Talo, the way that Wen Wu is like, you watched as she died, you were standing in a window. Motherfucker, he was 8.
Exactly. That was like
Motherfucker, he was
when I.
8.
What do you want him to do? Like then your son's dead too. So like what? It didn't
And
make a lot
it's
of
but it's
sense to
it's
me.
that constant bargaining though. Like
Mm,
these are not the thoughts of somebody who's thinking clearly. Like
mm,
it's an insane thing to say on purpose. He knows what he's saying is absurd. I think it's part of why he trains Shang-Chi the way he does, because he's like, oh, you failed. If you could be strong like me, this wouldn't have happened in the first
mhm.
place. And I wasn't strong like me. I wasn't strong like I should be. And
It's so
it makes
weird
it so
though,
compelling.
because there is like a warmth to him too. Like even when like there's moments where when Sean is, hitting the post over and over again, and he's like really pushing himself. When Wan Wu like stops him and like gives him advice, it does feel even though like he's pushing himself the insistence of his father, there is a like kind of Danny Boyle Full House, like you're gonna be okay. Like it's I hate I like
No, you're
hey.
right. But again, those are choices that I love so much, because it would have been really easy for Wen Wu to be irredeemably cruel and
Hmm.
monstrous.
Well, and
You
I think
know?
that's why he works. That's why he's
Yeah.
so compelling. It's like if he was just vengeful and just evil, just to be evil, like it wouldn't have been as good, and I think it wouldn't have been as memorable. But the fact that there it was that
There's a
hum
complicated humanity to it.
Exactly. And like even in like his final moments where like you see as also I know we're going to talk about this. The soul sucking is crazy. like it's just like fun adventure fantasy movie with a little crime in the middle and then it's just like I'm going to suck your soul out. It just
Yeah.
it's very but like seeing his like the smile on his face as he's giving the 10 rings to Sean was like that there felt that for me is the depiction and why his portrayal works so well is because it's that little warmth even despite the crazy and everything that he's done.
What works so well about that moment as Wen Wu kind of just surrenders the wings to Shang-Chi, what I love so much about that beat is that I don't want to say like a lesser film or a lesser screenwriter would have had Wen Wu say the quiet part out loud,
Mm-hmm.
and have Wen Wu verbalize his seeing the light and verbalize the I said I wanted you to be just as strong as me so I could give these to you. I'm now realizing you've been stronger the whole fucking
Yep.
time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the like at peace surrender. It is seeing a man who has defined his entire life and his entire identity around might makes right, around just being this domineering force. It is seeing him at an absolute state of acceptance pass on, not just spiritually as he dies, but like pass on the 10 rings to somebody who he knows for a fact will use them to greater effect, to a better benefit to the world at large than he ever
Mm-hmm.
could. And I just think that's so beautiful. I think it's incredible. And it's part of what makes him compelling as as a foil to Shang-Chi. And if I have, there's just so much to say about Wen Wu that despite the fact that like he does not get as much to do as I thought he did.
Mm-hmm.
Like that, and that's how much of a mark Tony Leung leaves on the character. Um, is just stupendous. If I have one quibble with the movie and with like the arc Shang-Chi goes on, especially with all of the flashback stuff, um, I don't like that he killed the guy.
For that kill his mom.
Yeah, I don't
You
because like
know,
whenever
you know what's
because
crazy? When I saw the movie for the first time, I thought that they were gonna make it because at the beginning of the movie, Katie's grandpa is dead. I thought that they were gonna make it Katie's grandpa, and that would have been
for a
such a like.
brief moment I thought that was the direction they were going to.
But like, I agree. But like to have that and to still like to have that regret with him, I think that's what makes him different than his father. It's like that little piece of his mom. He did what his dad wanted, but like he had to run away. He couldn't go back to him, like it.
And I like it. And it's not that I think
Mhm,
it doesn't work. I think the stronger version of that is he was sent in and it was like I was powerless as a boy and like already again the unspoken element of that if I was powerless then. And the idea of being powerful and powerless is kind of the driving like conflict and motif with Wenwu. And sending Shang-Chi into a situation of the last time I saw you, I was powerless to save my mother. And you pitied me as a child and you said the kids can go. But you're sending me out. I have you in my sights. And in my bones, I know that my mother doesn't want me to do this.
mhm,
In my bones, I know everything wrong with my father is that he thinks this is the only solution to this. When stuff like this is why this is happening in the first place.
mhm.
And see, giving him an opportunity to show an amount of mercy and feel shame for it and go, well, I can't go home now. Like I
There's
can't go home and I'm like I'm either going to be in mortal danger or I'm getting everybody else in danger by sparing this guy.
mhm.
If I say I'm going to go do it and then I just fuck off, there's a part of me that loves the idea that like it reinforces the, you know, yes, you have the strength and the fortitude of your father, but it is your mother's compassion. It is your mother's mercy that is why
Mhm.
like this rock paper scissors between
It's
Wen Wu and his wife, whose name escapes me. No, she is always the paper and he's always the rock.
mhm.
You
It's
know,
it. There's another line that really stood out to me, and it was basically take the parts of like from your father, take the parts of your mother, and make something new. Like take what you've learned from both of them and make it your own, make it new.
yeah.
Which is also you talk about Destin doing Star Wars. That is a very Star Wars
Oh my
like that is
god!
like one of the most Star Wars ideas that like I have
As I
ever heard.
started to speak, I was afraid I was going to do that beautiful scene from the end of
Mhm,
Obi-Wan Kenobi,
mhm,
where he's
mhm,
talking to Leia and he's like, you're this, that, and this, and these are traits of your mother, and you're this, that, and this, and these are
mhm,
gifts from your father.
mhm.
Like as I was speaking, I was like, I'm about to quote Obi-Wan
Yep.
Kenobi.
Which I'm liable to do at any moment anyway. So
Yeah,
that's
are
but
we all?
it feels like I said, it's not just the action, which is great and it's fresh and it's cool. It's that. It's the emotional core to it that like gives it more depth than like a majority, like 99% of the superhero movies that come out today. So like that for me it really stood out to me.
Yeah, I mean, and again, I think it is what is at the core, and I think it's why like the MCU and like again like quote unquote superhero movies like as a kind of like meta genre, not a stylistic genre, but just a type of movie that is made. Um, it is the center on the humanity of it all. I think that is what makes Marvel what it is. It isn't hype moments and aura. It isn't the connectivity. It's how human these characters are.
Mhm.
And it's that X factor that is why the MCU is what it is. Even the low points of the MCU, your Thor: The Dark Worlds and your fucking Secret Invasions, whatever. Even those, there's a human element to it that even if the surrounding whatever of it is not the best, there's still a human element to it that I
Mhm.
really appreciate. You know, I've said before, and I'm sure I'll say it again when we get to Secret Invasion, I gaslit myself into thinking I love that show mostly just because of the scene where Nick Fury's talking about like people being racist to his grandpa.
Mhm.
Like because like how much that show is about distrust of the other. Hearing Fury talk about being othered, I was like, "Oh, this show's great on one monologue." And it was able to coast off of one fucking monologue for a huge chunk of its run before I went, "Oh, this is kind of cheeks." But it still has that glimmering moment in it. And I just really do enjoy this movie, and I do think it is a shame that we have not seen anything really from
Well,
Shang-Chi
I know he's going to be in
since this movie.
Doomsday,
He's
like,
going to be in
but at the
Doomsday.
same time, it'll have been 5 years since he's been in anything, anything. Like, and there will eventually be a sequel, and I know that what I'm hoping for is that it's kind of him and his sister, like him realizing after Doomsday that she's taken over the Ten Rings, and like
Yeah.
that having that conflict, that would be really really interesting for me to see. Or if they're doing like a weren't they supposed to do a Ten Ring show at some point? Like,
There was something bandied about the Ten Rings as a show. I know the original. We don't know it for a fact, but one of like the prevailing rumors was that Shang-Chi sequel was going to be one of the like in between Doomsday and Secret Wars movies when it was still Kang Dynasty.
mm-hmm.
That it was going to be like Shang-Chi and the Wreckage of Time was the thing that was kind of like
Yeah,
floated around as a rumor that like,
You
which
could
I get.
still do that. Like, that's
I
like,
was super into. I'm still into the idea that Shang-Chi gets a Battle World movie.
mm-hmm.
You know, I think if you're going to do a movie between those two things, if you're going to lean into the Secret Wars Battle World shit, like do it with him.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like let it like if you just want to go ape shit with, you know, not to say like, oh, like it'll be good, like you don't even need a story because that's
You do need.
stupid and
First of
reductive.
all, you do need a story.
You do need a
You do need a
story,
story.
but like you could coast off of just here is, you know, like let's you know, let's take Cretin and we'll take him and all the stunt coordinators from this and Simu Liu and they just get to fight off the wall fucking variants for 2 hours.
I
My
dude,
ass is in a seat.
I
I don't care how paper
we
thin the plot
we
is. My
did
ass is in a seat.
we did not get enough time with him with the actual 10 rings,
Yeah.
like that. Once again going back to Win why he rocks, like just how physical he is with the rings. But then you see
Yeah.
what Shang-Chi was able to do with them, like getting a movie or two where you just see him use the 10 rings, like in the
Yeah.
way that you're supposed to. Given this cast, given everybody behind the scenes, like come on, like get out of here. Like I'm there. Like we're seated.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But yeah. No, this is a really fun movie again. Like I don't think it's how do I put this? Shang-Chi is one of those MCU movies that it's like it's not mold breaking in by nature. It is, however, just incredibly fun, incredibly stylish, and has such heart to it. Um, and it
I
is
agree.
incredibly fun to revisit. You know, again, I think that after Endgame, there came a really weird expectation from the fan base and from the audiences that everything was going to hit the incredibly unbelievable highs of Endgame every time
Well,
and that
that's
people don't understand how to come down from that. And that's one of those instances where like I love phase 4 so much
mhm,
because it is that quintessential feeling of like, you know, a huge event happens in the comics.
mhm.
A huge event happens in the comics and all the pieces are rearranged on the board and it's like the new status quo is here. And maybe that status quo will only be it for a year or two before there's another big event and we go to a new status quo. But right now, there's a fresh playing field. The board is cleared,
Mhm.
and let's see what we can build after we just built
Well,
this gigantic thing. And that's what
Jared,
I think
it's
makes it feel like a fucking comic book.
this. It was very, very special because it feels like something that I've been calling post Endgame clarity for a while now. Where like now you finished, you got to the top, and now you're seeing, like you said, where the board is. Um, but I think that's what makes the MCU special, is because like you can get these really fun, really intimate movies that are also like sprawling epics, like that kind of mixes a crime story with mythical dragons, but then like, and it's like kind of just kind of an origin movie for Shang-Chi,
Yeah,
but then you get Avengers Endgame, you get Doomsday, which I'm I am fairly certain I will it's gonna be good. Like it's gonna be a great
I
movie.
agree. Yeah,
I like it just it feels, yes, people are gonna complain regardless, but like it just feels like this is the shit that they do really, really well, especially the Russos. So like
yeah.
I, I'm really, really looking forward to my post Secret War and post Doomsday clarity.
I wish more people had that clarity. I wish more people did, because what I think people didn't understand with the multiverse saga was that these stories, and to kind of wind down here, kind of talking about the connective tissue of the multiverse saga,
Mhm.
which I think is an overarching, beautiful theme about moving on, and how the multiverse, and granted, like not all of these movies involve the multiverse. I mean, this one technically does with how Talo works,
Mhm.
um, but all of these movies, all of these shows, on some level, are about a fundamental human experience of something unbelievable happened, and my life is no longer the same.
Mhm.
Is this a life worth continuing? Is this a life I can continue without being burdened by what I've lost? Can I honor what I've lost while changing for the better, or is my changing dishonoring the thing that I lost? Or was the thing I lost what was holding me back, and now that it's gone, can I make myself better while still looking back on it fondly for what was good about it? Like, this Shang-Chi does all of that. All of that is here. All of that is present. It's so much part of the connective tissue. And what I think is frustrating, you know, and this is kind of like, granted, when we talked about this is months ago on Teen App. Travis and I, it was on the topic of AI, but I think the same is true about the way that like nerd culture and fandom community has like permanently dumbed itself down kind of overnight. Like
Mhm.
there were always people who didn't
Well,
get it. There were always people who didn't get it, didn't understand what the fuck they were talking about. But now like it's so loud where like it's not even people playing with their action figures, because kids playing with their action figures is like the building block fundament of storytelling. It may not be complex, it may not be the fucking Godfather, but a story's being told, and that is what begins to get those synapses firing. And what a lot of like nerd culture has done is we're not even playing with our action figures anymore. We're just going to Target, walking into the aisle where the action figures are, planting our feet firmly, and just pointing at characters we know.
Mhm.
And I
Well,
think
and
what sorry, you go.
no, I would argue that like people complain a lot about the multiverse saga and say that, oh, they just bring back they bring back Wolverine, they bring back Tobey Maguire, they bring back Andrew Garfield, they bring back these people.
Yeah.
But what's always been stuck out to me is when they bring these big people back. Like I said, Garfield, Maguire, Wolverine,
Patrick Stewart.
Patrick Stewart. Well, when they are an instrumental part to the plot, they always move forward. They are always growing.
Yeah.
They are always giving. Well, for example, in No Way Home, they give Peter hope. They show him like this is what we can do, and then even
They're
despite like,
so crucial. They're so
yeah,
crucial to
they're
that
if
story.
you're they're crucial to the plot and they're bringing them back, they always move forward. This fandom has not,
No, and the issue is like
and that's any
I think
fandom, frankly. Like
oh,
it's
100%. But like what's happened with the MCU fandom and like the audience that I think is a crucial issue is at the same time that there is it will never be better than Endgame. It'll never be better than the Infinity Saga. And because we've convinced ourselves of that, it is inherently true. And you factor in the weird fandom menace element of it, that every time the MCU is dead, it's people of color or women. And every time it's
Mhm.
back, it's white people and it's white guys. And, so you have that snake eating its own tail constantly. But there's also this thing where I think people convince themselves that the multiverse saga had to be inherently gigantic.
Hmm.
And that because I think there's a weird expectation of scale, because we've associated massive scale with multiverse, we've associated the scale of the story with the with how monumental it is to get certain actors back. There's this weird
You're
idea that
right.
like, oh, like something like Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, people were like, oh, I thought the movie would be bigger, I thought there would be more this, I thought there would be more that. The Illuminati's just kind of here. They are just kind of here. They're a plot device. They're a
Hmm.
cool plot device because we get fucking agent your Captain Carter, and okay, here's goddamn John Krasinski as Mr. Fantastic. You'll shut the fuck up about it. And Patrick Stewart's here, and Anson Mount's back as Black Bolt, and he's actually wearing the suit. How cool is that? Like, the thing about the multiverse saga that like is going to start becoming a topic of conversation on Road to Doomsday from here on out is that it is equal parts um the multiverse being used as a brilliant plot device about moving on, about having the opportunity to look at what if X, what if Y, looking back and using it as a storytelling device to reflect on what could have been and what you had, and then to look forward after that. It does all that, but it also goes, hey, wouldn't it be fucking cool if we did this?
Well, because you can do both.
And you
Like
could
you
do
can do
both,
both.
and both works.
Well, and that the scale you're talking about, that's Doomsday and Secret Wars. Like you can't do
Yeah,
that for every fucking movie. Like
but
you
then you
just
get
can't.
things like No Way Home, which are gigantic events. But when you and but and granted, I think No Way Home adds to the problem, even though it's one of my favorite superhero movies
Mhm.
of all time. Like, I think it adds to the problem because by the end of the story, it is the multiverse is about to cave in on itself.
Yeah, yeah.
But like,
You're right.
you know, but without those stakes, like the scale, I think there's a weird scale expectation, and that's a thought we'll talk about, and it'll permeate the rest of the Road to Doomsday conversation. Um, but yeah, but I think that, like, we have in WandaVision, the show is about grief, it's about moving on. Falcon and the Winter Soldier, there's an element of like we're grieving Steve's legacy, and we're trying to make peace with like what does it mean to be Captain America in the modern age, and without somebody as stalwart and Boy Scout and ha, 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 I am here, I am a hero kind of All Might shit with Steve. Like it Loki, like it all like this idea permeates all of it. And there are so many people who talk about, oh, it's not as connected as it used to be, and it's like, A, you're wrong. B, even if it wasn't connected because there isn't a Nick Fury showing up at the end of every movie,
Hmm.
there is a thematic, motific connectivity that even things like everything from like Shang-Chi and Secret Invasion and WandaVision and No Way Home and Wakanda Forever, to Fantastic Four First Steps, all of these are trafficking in the same themes, and it's all telling a big story that I think is going to beautifully culminate in Doomsday. And again, like the Shang-Chi is evidence of like, even though this movie in many ways feels very different than a lot of its other Phase 4, Phase 5
Hmm.
counterparts, it still has that thematic
Well,
motific connectivity.
it has that, and it also, if you want to talk about like plot line, like the Ten Rings are going to be connected to Doom in some capacity. Like it was probably originally going to be Kang, but like they,
Maybe.
I think like you don't do. By the way, those post credit scenes at the end of Shang-Chi are both phenomenal. Like those are two bangers.
Oh yeah.
Two
I
like that.
think you say what you're going to say. I want to talk about
That
the one post credit scene before we wrap up.
because like there are a couple of there are a couple brands of post credit scenes. It's the fun ones, and then you get like the more serious ones that like move the things forward. This movie was able to do both for
Yeah.
two of them. Like the showing like, hey, there's a beacon coming from the Ten Rings, like, and then also ending it like, hey, let's go do karaoke, and then ending on the second one where it's, oh, the sister's taking over the Ten Rings, and it's going to be really really cool.
I think so. The Ten Rings in their comic origin, and I looked this up to make sure I was remembering it correctly. They are in the comics. In the comics, they are literal rings, like rings that go around your fingers, and they're kind of like the Infinity Stones insofar as they represent different aspects of like creation, in that kind of vibe. but so that they weren't too similar to the Infinity Stones, they changed it for the film to be kind of like the armbands, which is cool and whatever. So they were always alien in some way. There's a part of me that wonders, and there's a part of me that was always intrigued by the theory that when you look at like the Quantum Mania city and
Hmm.
especially like Kang's fortress in the quantum realm, that like that was like Kang technology, and there's like a
Hmm.
weird bootstrap paradox at play. And there's a part of me that's curious if that's still a thing, because I think that this might end up as one of those post credit scenes that doesn't really get followed up on, which is
Yeah.
fine. It's okay to have a post credit scene that's just a fun stinger and a cool, ooh, that would be cool thing. But there's a part of me that wonders if
It
they
meant
were
something in
somehow,
2021 before the Jonathan Majors of it
before we
all.
found out Jonathan Majors fucking sucked.
Yeah.
And then turns out Jonathan Majors sucked,
Hmm.
and it's not connected in that way anymore. But there's a part of me that's curious if they'll work that in somehow. You know, the Shang-Chi's involvement, pardon me, is like one thing that has not really been discussed with the Doomsday hype train and like
Hmm.
rumor mill. Like I have not heard much about Shang-Chi. I've heard lots about the fucking X-Men. You know,
I, I
I've heard lots
I'm
about the
just
Fantastic Four. I've not heard much about what's going on with Shang-Chi. And I'm curious
I'm
about
just
that.
assuming that he's on Sam's Avengers team. Like that's kind of
That's what I'm really hoping for.
that's what makes the most sense to me. Because like I think he's already, the joke like, oh, Captain Marvel asked them for your number, like, so he's
Yeah.
like, the Hulk is already like knows about him, Wong knows about him,
Yeah. Hulk
so
hits him with
like,
the welcome to the
yeah,
circus.
yeah,
You know,
so like
prologue.
he's in the circus now. He's just like they got to give him an act. So
Yeah.
this is they'll give him an act.
But yeah, absolutely. Well, Bill, unless you have anything else to say on Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, I think that brings us to the end of this episode.
No sir, what a great movie, what a
So,
picture,
what a picture.
what a
Absolute
picture.
cinema. Um, but yeah, with that, Bill, where can the living people find you, my friend?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Star Wars Bill. If you like me and are like political content, I am the executive producer for a podcast hosted by Amy McGrath. She is currently running for Senate in Kentucky. It's called Truth in the Barrel. Just look up Truth in the Barrel on podcast on YouTube. You can find us on Spotify,
Look it
anywhere
up
you
on
find your
podcasts.
podcast. Look it up. Let me tell you, if you look it up on podcast, Truth in the Barrel.
Look it up on podcasts
Look it
is
up on
like
podcast.
is spiritually related to Tesla. Everything's computer.
every you can just go to your computer and look up Truth in the Barrel. You'll find it. I promise. We've ensured that you can find it. Okay.
No, do check that out. Bill's doing great work over there. Very, very, very happy that you have that going on for you, buddy.
Yeah, man. Other than that, thanks for having me.
Of course. And you can also find Bill on Nerd Academy and Knights of the Nerd Republic.
I'm
And
around. I'm
he's,
here.
yeah.
Hi,
Like I
you'll
said,
find me.
I
I'm in the building.
early on when we did our first episode of Road to Doomsday that Travis was on,
Mhm.
I ran into this issue where I started to say special guest Travis Grossman, and then I went, "Well, you're not a special guest because you're like an in-house Nerd Academy person," and I was like, "But you are still special.
Mhm.
It's
Thank you.
just you work here."
The special guest is coming from inside the house.
The special guest is coming from inside the house. But yeah, you guys can find me over on Instagram and Blue Sky Dark Jedi 2552. You can find the Nerd Academy podcast on Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. You also go to our website, thenerdacademypodcast.com. Or if you're feeling generous, you can donate to our Patreon. $5 patrons and up get early access to every episode of The Road to Doomsday and exclusive access to our audio commentary series. And I would be remiss if I didn't say that also makes you Taylor's best friend.
True.
$10 patrons or alumnus get shout outs at the end of every episode. So thank you to Paco and Ray Clausen. You could also catch me on Pro and Noob on the Mitch692 channel, where we're making our way through Attack on Titan. I had a blast with that. Where I am done watching it. You guys are still experiencing it. But absolute, I think this is my favorite season of Pro and Noob that we've done. It's been a lot of fun. Absolutely loved Attack on Titan. It's one of those things that when Taylor and I are done with Road to Doomsday and I can kind of like let my media diet be things that aren't the MCU, I kind of want to go back to Attack on Titan and rewatch it top to bottom because I had a really good time with that. You can also check out Luminous Odyssey, the Star Wars RPG show on all remaining systems set in the High Republic era. It is myself, it is Taylor, it is Alden Diaz, it is Joe Organa, having a absolute blast in the High Republic era. So check that out. And Epic Confrontations, the Star Wars Trivia League that Bill and I are both in. Bill has a match coming up that he may have alluded to earlier. Michael and I already had our match together as the Jedi Princes. So if you want some Star Wars trivia, go check that out. But with all of that said, thank you so very much for watching. Next week, we get to one of the more controversial Marvel movies, an entry into the MCU that I think people are too fucking hard on, and that I quite like despite having a really interesting experience seeing it for the first time. We're talking all about Chloe Zhao's Eternals as we take the next steps on the road to Doomsday. So thank you all so very much for watching, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Go Cats, baby.
Go Cats.
Stop! Move away from the cookie jar!